everyone. Welcome to my show. Autumn is here. I am your host, Francine Crawford, and we have two special guests today. They're from a company called Steadii. Steadii is a free caregiver support platform. We're here to talk to Lisa Waters, who is the community manager, and we'll also have John Kors, who is the network team lead. So please welcome them to the show. Welcome, Lisa and John.
Thank you so much. We're happy to be here.
It's great to be here.
Glad that you had some time to give to Autumn is here. Today we are talking about a lot of things that help caregivers and support caregivers. And my show talks about how you support caregivers, how you give them knowledge and awareness and information, and to kind of empower them and to get family members more involved with their aging parents. So it seems like Steadii is good information for them. So can you tell me a little bit about Steadii and your background? Can we start with Lisa?
Yeah, sure. I've been with Steadii for about 3 years now, and I come from a background in marketing for health and wellness companies, specifically focused on mental health. So when I crossed paths with Steadii, they were at a point where they were trying to innovate a solution to help vulnerable populations, including caregivers. And to back up a little bit, Steadii was born out of Community Health Network, which is a hospital system based in Indianapolis. And as I mentioned, they have an innovation team that was really tasked with how can we be providing services to people who don't have access to services that they need. And caregivers kind of arose as a really clear, vulnerable population of people who don't have enough support, and people who really feel isolated and need that support. So that's where the idea of Steadii came from. And now fast forward a few years, we are here offering one-on-one support through what we call our caregiver advocates. We match family caregivers with an advocate who every advocate that Steadii has two things in common. They have personal experience with caregiving in their own lives, and they also have a professional background in a mental health or emotional health or behavioral health field. So a lot of social workers, nurses, therapists, that kind of thing. We match those with family caregivers, and we provide a service where you can hop on a video call like this or message them when you just need that outside support. You need somebody to be able to be there to walk through the ups and downs of caregiving, process grief, process difficult emotions, encourage you along the way, that kind of thing. So.
Okay. And John, so tell us a little bit about what you do for Steadii.
Sure. We'll give a little bit of my background because it'll probably make sense after you hear this. I was born on a small little farm to 2 PhD shrigs. So had a lot of growing up just around psychology. My parents never did ink blot tests or anything else or therapized me, but I was just always around that energy. And I think throughout my career, I've been in the business world alongside work that Lisa's doing around marketing and new products, but I've always been around creating something new at the edge. And there's a transformational quality around that. And community health has really invested in how do we really think about caregiving and transform that status quo. So this kind of transformational theme has always been in my life. And I think that's really a chance to look at caregiving and how do we think about the transformation that they're going through. In all the caregivers I've supported throughout the years and the people we spoke to, there's this deeper soul journey I see in that caregiver. They're going through reclaiming parts of their childhood. They're reclaiming confrontation with family members. They're trying to balance a new role in their life with all these other roles. And there's this kind of emergence I always see that happens with that caregiver. And I think it's a really beautiful process. I think Lisa's kind of mentioned the personalization we have at Steadii. But I might go one step further in saying it's really kind of an individuation process. Like, how do we really see each individual and who they really are as a whole person emerging through this caregiving journey? And I think from my parents as psychologists into just my own really fascination with human transformation and human development, I think I was lucky enough to kind of land in the Steadii team. So I've been through most of the team when we first started as two people, just interviewing hundreds of caregivers and feeling their stories, through a lot of the initial product work, and now in my role of kind of scaling our advocacy network, our caregiver advocacy advocates. Um, I think within that process, my passion really is around, not just the Enneagram, for those of your listeners that may be familiar with it, but other tools that allow us to really speak into a caregiver's life and walk alongside of them during these really transformative moments.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So when you're an advocate also.
I am an advocate also. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're advocate, you're helping the caregiver and you're meeting them where they're at that time, correct? Okay. 'Cause
Exactly.
it's not like a structured thing where everybody is going to need a certain amount, certain things for help. You actually listen to the caregiver and help them in what they need for that moment, what they're going through.
Exactly. Exactly. And our entire team is trained that way, to really speak into somebody's life and understand exactly where they're at. And it may be resources around, caregiving. I've had people ask for really those really great resources around dementia. We've had other people ask for just business support or going back to school and how to balance that. Or even like how to find space in a house when I'm living with, my mother or father who needs care. How do I create kind of an energetic space that's my own? We have lots and lots of different, um, kind of scenarios we work with that caregiver, but we really start by understanding where they're at and what their real needs are.
Okay. So everyone is different, I know that. But are there any common things that you hear from caregivers that should be addressed or need to be addressed or that we should point out so this way people are aware of it and can get help, you know, before they're a caregiver or just think about now what they're going through?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, and I feel really lucky to have been in on part of the research and gearing up to what is Steadii going to be and what are we going to offer. And I really admire our team and Community Health Network in general for putting so much thought behind this. But one of the things that we kept coming across in those interviews with caregivers is a couple of things. One is no one else is in the same exact situation that I'm in. I'm in a very unique situation. You know, we have millions of caregivers across the country, and there are common threads for sure, but one common thread is that nothing is ever the same from one person to the other, and you have to be flexible when you're serving caregivers in that capacity. And the other thing that comes up a lot is a lot of people aren't identifying themselves as caregivers in the same way that we might identify them as caregivers. You know, it often starts with, well, I'm just going over to mom's house to check and make sure she took her meds, or I'm just bringing food by, or I'm just visiting with dad, you know, whatever that is. That's more than a just. Like, that is starting to take on the physical, mental, emotional, and a lot of times even financial care for someone. But so many of us just say, well, this is my loved one. This is my obligation or my job, or of course I'm going to step in and do this. But a common theme is those responsibilities, the physical load, but also the mental and emotional and financial load on somebody can start to snowball really fast. And the person who's actually providing that care often isn't aware of how much that's snowballing and how that starts to crowd in on their own identity. So one common theme is just being able to support caregivers to retain their own identity and continue living their lives in ways that are fulfilling to them and match with their personalities, their dreams, their goals, while still being able to work caregiving into their lives. And I think that's a really important theme. John has done an incredible job. So, as you said, no two people are the same, so no two caregivers are the same, but we have worked different frameworks. He mentioned the Enneagram as one of them, to be able to kind of fast track understanding where people are coming from, because as people come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, faith backgrounds, personality backgrounds, even just their geographic location will affect how they give care. And like you said, we're not trying to push people into this is the way to be a caregiver. We're trying to come alongside them and say, let's shine some light on your strengths. Let's help support you where maybe you don't feel as strong. Let's help build those skills and build resilience as a caregiver is kind of a common theme. John probably has a lot more to add to that.
Well, all the caregivers, they're matched up with people who are advocates, but the advocates are professional people, right? They're not
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're not just volunteers that are just, they are professional people. So when you match them up, you hear what they have to say, and then you match them up. If they need a social worker, if you think that they have those skills, the social worker has the skills for them. That's how you. Okay.
Absolutely. They are social workers, therapists, former pastors, coaches, and all have experience as caregivers as well. I think that provides a lot of ability to relate to individuals really quickly. I can't tell you how many times I hear it's so nice to just be on a phone call with somebody that can hold the space and hold me emotionally, but also gets dementia or Alzheimer's and understands this. So, in addition, it's nice that I know in a lot of the world, it's like you find one person you connect with, but then you need a different need, and then you have to go find that person and that person.
Mm.
It's nice within our advocate network. We talk and we share, and I can pass somebody to one of our advocates that are great with grief work, or somebody that is more focused on social work or resource navigation. So we can pass people within our network so they don't ever feel lost in the system.
Okay, that's great. So do you partner with people in the community? Do you partner with other people or churches or community um, people that are working with different people in aging or something like that? Do you partner with anyone like that?
No, so we have in little pockets here and there. We are now affiliated with the American Foundation for Alzheimer's. We've done some work with the Alzheimer's Association themselves. And then on more local levels, we've teamed up with some senior living facilities, nursing facilities, that kind of thing, and then the hospital system itself with, okay, if you are an organization who has a lot of caregivers in their community, how can we support them in mass, kind of? How can we come alongside and talk to your caregivers about this need to match with an advocate and start serving them? So, yeah, we're starting to do that. We would like to do a lot more of it.
Okay. How often do people use your services? Like if I have an advocate assigned to me, can I call them do I speak to them once a month? Do I speak to them once a week? Like, is there a time slot? How do you schedule that? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's based on what the caregiver needs. I've seen people have 3 sessions in a month, or 1 session in a month, or meet every other month. Um, this isn't really therapy. It's this capacity to just hold people through a transformation of what they need. So we make it very adaptive to what that caregiver needs and is looking for. So sometimes we engage with caregivers for a few months. Sometimes it's longer, up to a year. But it's really dynamic based on what that caregiver is looking for. If I look at the data, which I would not normally know this, but I've been looking at data all week, we average about 1.43 sessions per caregiver per month. It's the average across our entire population. So.
Okay. Do you help many caregivers if they had someone for quite a long time and they change, like say if you have dementia, it starts off at one level and after years if you're caregiving for somebody, it changes. Then you have to make even harder decisions. Are you able to kind of help them and guide them through some even medical decisions or whatever it is that they have? Like, are you able to do that? Have you had people that you had to get to that point to help them in that way?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I think our advocates understand very well is that the caregiving, we talk about the caregiving journey is really full of ups and downs, peaks and valleys, and there is no obligation to come back on a regular basis. Some people will feel really confident in the stage that they're in. And then when things get harder, they want to reach out and make contact again. And there's not this weird, like, oh, I haven't talked to them in a while. Are they going to take me back? We're just here when you need that space again. And we understand that can go up and down. And as far as making decisions, tough decisions like that, I would say our advocates' roles are typically to be supportive and to reflect what is inside of the caregiver back to them. So instead of, should I put mom in a living facility or not, our advocate's not going to say yes or no, but they are going to know you and your situation well enough to ask the important questions and to help weigh the decisions so that that person can talk through that decision. John, did I describe that well?
Yeah. Maybe a story without getting specific. I would say medical, there's a lie where we don't give medical advice. But we can sit there and be supportive. But specifically around housing decisions is a really common pattern. And a lot of times, there's different patterns within that. One is commonly, what's the right or wrong thing to do? And it's something that we find in caregivers. It's almost a visceral rightness stored in the body. And that rightness comes from something far beyond just this experience. And in making that decision, there can be this paralysis. So am I making the wrong decision? And then there's shame and guilt, and the body can get really tight and can almost lock up. And we're trained in, like, how do we support the body through that process of trying to relax and let some of that anxiety and that rightness fall away to find a different way to make that decision. Another is we see in the housing decisions is really using the head center. A lot of caregivers are so used to being on the spot all the time. And how do you take responsibility for every risk? So they do a lot of research. They're always looking at information, and they have to store everything. We find there's almost like these neural pathways, like thousands and thousands of different scenarios they hold in their head of what could go wrong. And if something goes wrong, it's my responsibility, and then I'm a bad person. So again, that can lead to a lot of paralysis where there's so much to figure out. But a lot of that is all around the negative things that could happen. Every bad thing that could possibly happen to my loved one. And again, in that head center, there's ways that we can help support that decision to kind of unwind some of those paths and start to balance, what are some positive pathways that could happen through these housing decisions that are counterbalanced with the negative ones where things could go wrong. So again, I'm going a little deeper into some of these stories because you can see we tend to look at the heart, the head, and the body, and how are people making decisions from one or many of those three centers. And that, how do we understand what's really happening so that we can be more supportive and helping them feel like they have the agency to make these decisions and not carry guilt and shame for years afterwards.
Right. That's interesting. And I definitely relate to that. My mom had Alzheimer's for years, and I didn't know much about it at all, and didn't get a lot of information or a lot of support outside. And like you said, I didn't realize until after she had passed away, which is years later, that I was a caregiver. I never identified myself as a caregiver because it's my mom, and I was just gonna do what I had to do, and not even knowing that the disease was going to be progressive in the way that it was. So a lot of this is things that I can relate to, and I understand that people do need these services. So is there anything that you do after, say, caregiving? And I don't mean just the grief part of it, but after you finish caregiving and, somebody might have been caregiving for somebody for 6 years, 7 years. Is there anything that you have that you support the person who is no longer a caregiver and how to get back into life, how to get back to themselves? Is there anything, does it go beyond that, the caregiving?
Yeah. Lisa and I probably have a lot to say on this one, so I'm going to try to keep it short because I can see your energy wanting.
I wanted you to go first. I was like, this is the perfect question for him.
I would say the whole process is about helping them get back to their life. It's yes, maybe you haven't identified as the caregiver yet, but there's all these other roles and parts of your life that are starting to probably constrict, or you have to let go of because of responsibilities you feel you have to caregiving. How do we honor all of that through this whole process? So that when you transition and come into a different state, it's not like you're starting from ground zero, that there's parts of you that you've helped integrate along this whole entire journey. So I'd say our entire approach is on wellness and wholeness and seeing somebody in that whole state. And there's examples of businesses and career and learning and education and partnership and all sorts of things that we see along that journey. I would say afterwards in that transition, absolutely, we have people that still have calls with us. I think we inevitably see a state where people say, I feel great, and you helped get me through this, and I'm ready for the next thing. And a lot of our transition endings are just kind of a mutual agreement. But a lot of that work's done through the process.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. And I would just add to that we very much see grief, both kind of this anticipatory grief and ambiguous grief that happens before the actual death of your loved one, and the grief after, as a really important part of the caregiving process. And we have people who specialize in grief for that reason. And I think that has been very powerful. The other thing that we hear, even from people who are well-resourced with friends and family and faith communities and partners and people around them, grief specifically can be really hard. A lot of people feel like grief should be over after the funeral, or grief should be over at a certain time. And we know that that's not how grief works. And I think that's one way in which having a non-biased advocate in your life, even if you have really supportive friends and family, when you have someone who is just here to support you individually in your caregiving journey, you don't have that feeling of, is this the appropriate thing to say to my friend? Is this going to make them feel uncomfortable? Is my sister going to react differently because her grief journey is differently? Like, it's almost like those people might know you too well. And so having this non-biased relationship and somebody that you can go to and just be fully honest and open without that family and friends filter, I think helps in a lot of stages of the caregiving journey, but grief specifically is a big one.
Okay.
I would agree. It's interesting. We see loss as an event or as a person, and there's this, you're grieving this moment, but it really is so much larger, more expansive, because you're not just losing your loved one. There's some part of you that you're losing, and you're feeling that before the event, you're feeling it different, and you're feeling it far after. And I think we very much believe in a community model where how do we hold people through that process? Because even in grief is a transformation of somebody really trying to figure out what's next in my life. What have I really lost? What have I really gained? And where am I moving next? And definitely not an event-based moment.
So is everything that you do, is it definitely one-on-one, or do you have any kind of support groups that you gather people together with similar needs or interests, or just to vent or something like that? Is there anything like that you have?
So far, our bread and butter has been the one-on-one, but we do have a community, an online community where people can chat with each other. We have kind of topical conversations going on in there. We have different resources in there. Our long-term goal is to really build that community up where people feel like this is a safe space. It's not the wild, wild west of social media where you don't know what you're going to get as a response, but it's a safe place to share in community. And we've experimented with a lot of different ways to support people in groups and things like that. Right now, our focus is on really getting resources out on targeted topics. So like this morning, one of our advocates and I hosted a live webinar on grief. Next week, we're hosting one on kind of the identity crisis that a lot of caregivers face. Who am I outside of being a caregiver? Who am I now that I am a caregiver? Or who am I now that I'm no longer a caregiver? And the week after that, we're talking to a therapist about different helping styles. So community things in that way, in bringing people together for events like that. I would say it's not off the table that we would have group kind of support systems in the future, but that is definitely kind of a down the road thing.
Okay. Okay. Well, I love that it's you do have one-on-one. I really do, because there's some things that people will not expose or say in a group, and they need to see it and they need to get the information. So I do love that. It's just that, it's good to hear that you're innovative and you're looking to do other things and expand. But what you're doing now is really great and is much needed. So
It's kind of funny. One of the things that we've learned is, again, just people having different styles and different needs. You have some people who really want that group kind of atmosphere. We've had several other people say, please don't put me in a group. I can't sit there and listen to everybody else complain and everybody else's lives are negative. Please just keep me one-on-one. And so I just think that I think we are learning how to serve people individually, and we're trying to conservatively grow our services to meet as much of that as possible.
okay, okay. So how do people get your services?
Yeah. Really easy right now. You just go to steadii.com. It's STEADII.com. And there's a few ways that you can connect with us on there, but the sign up button is the quickest one. You hit sign up and it will walk you through the process of matching with an advocate and then kind of filling out the rest of your profile. So what are some of those personality traits? What are some of those values that are really important to you? Tell us more about your loved one. I would say the whole thing takes about 10 minutes to get signed up. And if you want to ask more questions, you can also schedule a 15-minute consultation call or chat live with one of our advocates during working hours. We have a resource library on there too.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for giving us any time. Is there anything else that you would like to say that you think that the audience should know? Anything you want to share about Steadii? Either one.
Anything come to mind, John?
Covered everything.
Oh, no, I think we covered.
Because I'm not. This is new to me, so I may not ask you all the questions. So there may be something else that you want people to know. So that's right.
Oh, I would say there's to those listeners that are really going through this caregiving journey. Every story is remarkable, and every story I hear. There's sometimes days, weeks, months of hearing people's stories, and they're beautiful and remarkable. And I'm honored to be a part of it and walk alongside of them in identifying who they are through caregiving and who they're going to be afterwards. I think it's just a really important time. We're honored to be there with people.
Yeah. And I would just add a little bit of encouragement. Our advocates especially are so aware of how draining caregiving can be on your time, on your finances, on just your mental load. And we know that even signing up for something, even though it takes 10 minutes to sign up, can be another barrier. And I would just encourage people to give it a shot. There is no commitment to stay on for a certain amount of time. You meet one time and it's not for you. That is perfectly valid and okay. But so many people say, we wish we would have connected with an advocate earlier because we didn't realize how much lighter we would feel, how much better we would feel after we did that. So I would just encourage people to do what it takes to squeeze that in there and give it a try.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And you're right that people, they're caregiving and they don't want to do one more thing, one more extra thing, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And all your services are free.
All of them are free. And it's really our job to try to take things off of your plate as much as possible. So hopefully we can remove some of that emotional burden and even some of the physical things, talking through strategies on how to free up some more time in your life. So
it's good to have that extra person to bounce things off of. Really, it really is when you're going through this, because you don't know how much it takes to be a caregiver until after you're in it. And yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I love the work that Steadii's doing. It feels like it's growing, expanding into something more. And as you go along, I'm sure it's going to be able to reach out to more people in different ways. So I'm so glad that you have this organization, and you're out here helping people and helping caregivers because it's really needed, and we need to be more aware of that. How many people are caregivers, and how many people may be caregivers, so they might need to think about and know that there's support out there now. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Take care.